The streets of Manila buzzed with the usual chaos, jeepneys honking, street vendors calling out their daily specials, and the rhythmic clatter of worn-out slippers on the hot pavement. Amid the noise and movement, a small boy no older than 10 stood on the corner of a busy market, clutching a cracked, second-hand guitar to his chest like a fragile treasure. His name was Noel, and he had learned early that the world didn't hand out kindness freely. He wore a shirt that had long since lost its color and shoes that no longer had soles. His eyes, however, deep brown and full of something far older than his years, held on to something most people had lost, hope. Every morning, Noel's day began the same. He would walk for miles to this corner, set down an empty plastic cup, and strum his guitar. Sometimes he sang upbeat pop songs to grab attention, other times it was soulful ballads that made passers-by pause. But no matter the song, his voice, smooth, raw, and aching with emotion, was impossible to ignore. Music was his survival. Each coin tossed into the cup meant food for his sick mother and baby sister. His father had left long ago, swallowed by the city's cruelty. Noel had become the man of the house far too soon. But there was something different about today. He had been saving a song in his heart, one he hadn't dared sing before. Hotel California. It wasn't just a classic rock anthem to him, it was a dream. His mother used to hum it when she still had strength, and he remembered her saying, "One day, baby, you'll sing this on a big stage. They'll hear you. You'll see." So as the sun rose higher, casting golden light across the market stalls, Noel stood up straight, adjusted the broken strap on his guitar, and began to play. The first chord silenced the crowd. And then came his voice, soft at first, almost a whisper. But as the verse unfolded, the melody grew. It wasn't just music, it was pain, love, memory, and longing woven into every note. People began to gather, their shopping bags forgotten, their eyes wide. A woman stopped mid-step, a vendor dropped his spoon. Even the noise of traffic seemed to fade into the background. There was something magical happening on that street corner. Something divine. Noel wasn't just singing a song. He was telling his story. And unknown to him, someone in the crowd was recording every second. A video that, within hours, would take the world by storm. But for now, it was just a boy, a guitar, and the echo of a mother's dream coming to life, right there in the heart of a city that had almost forgotten what miracles looked like. Noel had never set foot in a theater before. The grand building looked like a castle from a fairy tale, with lights that sparkled like stars and glass doors that reflected his dusty, thin frame. For a long moment, he just stood there, hugging his guitar, unsure if he even belonged. The video from the street corner had gone viral overnight. Millions watched it. It was shared by celebrities, played on morning shows, and even caught the attention of the producers of a national talent competition, Philippines Got Power. Within 2 days, a woman with kind eyes and a TV badge found Noel in the market and said words he'd never imagined. "We want you to audition on live TV." At first, he thought it was a scam. But when she showed him the online video, with his name trending across platforms and people writing comments like, "Goosebumps, who is this angel?" and "This kid needs the world stage," he realized it was real. But he almost didn't go. He had no clothes fit for TV. No money for a ride. And more than that, he was scared. What if they laughed? What if he failed? What if he froze under the bright lights? He sat beside his mother that night, who lay weakly on their bamboo mat, wrapped in a thin blanket. She looked up at him with fading eyes and whispered, "Don't be afraid, Anak. God gave you a gift. Use it. No one else can tell your story but you." Those words carried him to the stage. A church volunteer gave him a clean white shirt and black pants, slightly too big but still better than anything he'd ever owned. A local driver, who had seen the viral video, offered a free ride to the audition hall. People he didn't know were suddenly cheering him on, like he had already become part of something bigger than himself. Backstage, Noel felt his heart hammering against his ribs. Other contestants laughed, practiced dance routines, or warmed up their voices. He stood quietly in the corner, clutching his guitar, feeling like a shadow in a world of stars. Then, his name was called. He stepped out into a blinding sea of lights. The crowd fell silent. Four judges sat behind a long table, their expressions curious. One of them, a famous singer, gave him a warm smile. "Name?" she asked. "Noel," he replied, his voice trembling. "And what will you be singing today?" He took a deep breath and whispered, "Hotel California." The audience murmured, some intrigued, some doubtful. It was a bold choice. A legendary song. But as he stepped forward to the center of the stage, Noel reminded himself of one thing: this wasn't about winning. This was about honoring a promise. A mother's dream. And so, he closed his eyes, placed his fingers on the strings, and let his soul begin to sing. The first notes rang out, soft, steady, and strangely haunting. Noel's fingers trembled slightly on the strings, but his voice was clear. It floated through the auditorium, wrapping itself around every corner of the room like a quiet prayer. The judges leaned in. The crowd went still. "Noel," one whispered under her breath, "what are you doing to us?" He sang the first verse of Hotel California, not like a boy copying a famous tune, but like someone living it, like each word held a chapter of his life. The loneliness. The longing. The ache of being stuck in a place where the world moves on without you. "You can check out any time you like," he sang, eyes closed, pouring his entire soul into that line, "but you can never leave." And in that moment, something shifted. The celebrity judge with the cold reputation lowered her pen and covered her mouth. The man beside her blinked twice, then quickly wiped his eye. Even backstage, the camera crew stood frozen, some holding their breath, others whispering, "Is this really happening?" The audience was no different. What began as polite curiosity turned into raw emotion. People began to cry, not because the song was sad, but because Noel had made it real. It wasn't just his voice, it was the truth in it. They saw the barefoot boy from the street, but they also saw the thousands like him, kids born into struggle, into silence, whose stories never made it to a microphone. And here he was, with nothing but a borrowed shirt, a broken guitar, and the kind of voice that makes the heavens stop to listen. As he reached the final chorus, Noel's voice cracked, not from nerves, but from emotion. A tear slipped down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. And then, he finished. Silence. For one long second, the whole auditorium stayed absolutely still. Then, boom! A golden explosion burst from above as the golden buzzer was slammed with such force, it echoed louder than his last note. The celebrity judge who had once been known for being unshakable, was now standing, tears rolling freely down her face, shouting through them. "This is why we do this show. This. You are not just a voice, Noel, you are a miracle." Confetti rained down. The crowd erupted. People stood, clapping wildly, many crying. Some rushed forward just to be close to the stage. The host ran to hug him, lifting his hand like he was already the champion. Noel stood there, dazed, barely able to process what was happening. All he could do was look up through the glittering gold, and whisper under his breath. "Mama, they heard me." The golden confetti still floated in the air like little dreams coming true. Noel stood frozen at the center of the stage, guitar in hand, as if unsure whether this moment was real or just another hopeful fantasy from his small room back home. The judges rushed to him, wiping tears and offering hugs. The host knelt beside him, holding the mic close. "Noel," he said gently, "how do you feel right now?" Noel looked out at the cheering crowd, his eyes wide. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Like I'm not invisible anymore." And just like that, more hearts melted. Backstage, crew members clapped. Even the most hardened producers had tears in their eyes. What had just happened wasn't just a good performance. It was something pure, something that cut through the noise of talent shows and internet fame and reminded people why they fell in love with music in the first place. Noel was ushered into a backstage interview, still overwhelmed. A makeup artist handed him tissues. A cameraman gave him a warm thumbs up. He'd gone from being a nameless boy singing on a street corner to a national treasure in less than 5 minutes. But that was just the beginning. That same night, his audition video was uploaded to YouTube. Within hours, it had 10 million views. Then 20. Then 50. Celebrities across the world tweeted about him. Famous musicians called him the future of music. International media picked up the story. Barefoot boy with a golden voice captures the world's heart. Filipino street kid sings like an angel, makes judges cry. Watch the audition that brought an entire nation to tears. But what mattered most to Noel wasn't the fame or the attention. It was the moment he returned home. With producers who came along to film it, and saw his mother, sitting up in bed for the first time in weeks, watching the moment on television with tears streaming down her face. "Noel," she whispered, arms trembling as she reached out. "You did it." They hugged, both sobbing. His baby sister crawled into his lap, too young to understand it all, but even she smiled. Thanks to donations from fans and sponsors who saw the viral video, his mother received proper medical care. A local business offered them a clean apartment. A scholarship fund stepped in to give Noel formal training. And still, through it all, he remained humble, always saying, "This is not just my win. It's my family's. It's for every child who thinks they don't matter." Months later, Noel stood on an international stage, singing again, this time not just to survive, but to inspire. And in every note he sang, there echoed a universal truth. Sometimes, the smallest voices carry the biggest dreams. And when the world finally listens, everything changes.